John here from the Professional Nail School and Beauty Academy. The science behind acrylic nails is really interesting, and if you want to get into it, just check out the link that I put on our recent Facebook page. It explains it really well. But today I want to talk about polymerisation and how that can help you get a really nice arch on your nails. Right, here I have my powder, I've got my liquid, and I've got my dummy nail on a little stand here. And basically I've drawn a line on it just so that you can see where the cuticle area is. And basically what I'm going to do is just wet my brush by making sure I hit the bottom of the pot. I'm going to take it just off the very tip of the brush, like this. And then I'm going to go into my powder, keeping my brush quite vertical, and then I'm just going to go onto and pick up some acrylic on one side of the brush only. Then I'm just going to tap it on the nail, leaving a 1mm gap at the back. I'm going to put my brush in the gap and just press down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just brush out the acrylic, like so. Now that gap at the back is very important, because that's where you tap down. Now only count to 4, because if you leave it too long, this will start to polymerize, and then you will get it starting to set, and then you won't be able to brush it out to a smooth finish. Now this is the bit now that I want to really look at. How do we get a really nice arch on our nail? And basically, what you need to do is to allow polymerisation to occur. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to pick up, and then I'm going to put the bead onto where I want my arch, which is going to be somewhere about there. Now this is the bit that you've got to do. Now you've got to leave it to polymerise, and it will form like a ball on the nail, which is quite a smooth kind of dome, and then you go from the back and come down the nail. Now because we let it polymerise a bit, in other words what we often call setting, and basically it's the billions of molecules just joining together and forming a setting process. Now if I felt that arch wasn't big enough, I can still go back and just put a bit more on if I want to there. Just leave it to polymerise again. As you can see, it's just forming that little sort of bead on the top, which is going smooth. And then I'm just going to brush that out across the whole nail. Now because as I said before, because I delayed slightly, it's just going to leave it thicker in the middle. Now when you're brushing out, make sure you always brush from the back, not where you put the bead. So now I'm just going to apply some to the front of the nail. Just going to tip the nail up, place it right here, and then just pat that out with the very tip of the brush, and then keeping my brush laid down, I'm going to brush that backwards into the nail. If you get any hanging over, just slice it off. Now I can just come forwards a little bit there like this, just to get it nice and smooth. Now obviously on a real hand you will be making sure that there's no overlap onto the skin. And for my final bead, I'm just going to go back to the back, place it here, 1mm gap, 1, 2, 3, 4, pressing in the gap, and then going right from the very back, just smooth it out across the whole nail. Now what you should have achieved now, you should have achieved a thin layer at the back, just going up to the cuticle where you left the space, and you should have a heavier section in the centre, which is what we call the arch, and then it should just fade down towards the front, but not be too thick on the front. So you have got this rising curve going back down at the cuticle. So it comes thin, rises up, comes back down. And also you need this shape here as well, which will automatically happen. Now, it's as simple as that. So basically, polymerisation just means that you just need to leave the centre bead a little bit longer after you've placed it on so that it starts to set, which is another word for polymerisation. It's the billions of molecules within these monomers which are joining and linking together, forming chains. And as they form chains, they give off an exothermic reaction, which is builds up a little bit of heat, and then they join together and they set and become solid. So that's basically how it works. But polymerisation can help you build this arch by just delaying slightly before you start to brush out. Now, you probably noticed when I was doing this nail here, I didn't use any of the patting methods that you see a lot of people doing. You've no need to do that. Just use the sweeping strokes like this, and that will make sure that you end up with a very smooth finish on the nail, which means that when you come to file it now, there's virtually nothing to do. Now, on a shorter nail, you can see I've drawn my cuticle line a little bit further down. So this is now a shorter nail than the other one we did. So again, I'm just going to wet my brush. Now, I don't worry about how wet this brush should be, right? I find that very confusing to learners. So I just make sure my brush is thoroughly wet through, and then I just take it off the tip 4 or 5 times like that, and then I will go into here, keeping my brush quite upright so I get it on one side of the brush only, and then just tickle the surface and pick up my bead. Now this time I'm going to place the bead where I want my arch, so I'm going to place it there, and you can see now it's polymerizing, it's going into this like ball. Now I'm going to brush from the back, and this is the important thing here. You must always brush from the back, not from where you placed the bead. Always from the back, and always the full length of the nail. Now I'll go to the front and just put my piece on the front here. Sometimes this isn't necessary, it just depends on the length of the nail and how much acrylic you've actually picked up for your main bead, for your first bead. Again, any overlap, scrape it away. Always brush the full length of the nail, never part way down. Now I'm going to the back. So basically this time I just used 3 beads. So now I'm going to place that here, leaving this 1 millimeter gap. I'm now going to press the tip of the brush in the gap. 1, 2, 3, 4, brush out. Every time I come off, I'm just wiping the brush. And there we have it again. So it is very, very simple to do. I always tell my students that the most difficult part of your course is going to be nail shaping. And because all the tips have to be the same length, same shape, and they often say, oh no, I thought the acrylic was going to be the most difficult. Well, it isn't. Applying acrylic is very straightforward. As long as you don't get confused with all this patting and pushing and how wet my brush should be and things like that. You basically just keep it very simple, straightforward, and always brush the full length of the nail. So I hope you found that helpful, and don't forget, we're always here to help. You don't have to have done a course with us. If you've got a little question you'd like to ask me, just put it, inbox it below, and I will do my best to answer that question for you. So it's John here signing off. Bye for now.